Continuing with the second chapter of the I Am and the Principle of Society and the subtopic of the Ghost and the Spirit, the Holy Ghost and the Spirit, before I move forward, I want to go a bit further into one of the theories I suggested in the previous video. That is from a theory from a renowned psychologist and award winner in neuroscience who is proposing a new theory on how emotions work within the quote-unquote brain. One of the things that I realized reading all these theories and so on is that this brain is used as an entity. They speak about the brain as if it's something outside of us, as if it was its own entity. And this might be a bit interesting if we consider that perhaps the brain is merely a tool, and scientists are kind of, sort of, worshipping the brain, and they speak about the brain doing this, and I've seen in some articles they speak about the brain as a quote-unquote magician that does things that we are trying to reverse engineer to figure out how it works, this quote-unquote brain, as if it was some sort of entity on its own. But in any case, I have to speak about this topic right now. This topic is the brain. Is everything within the brain, or is consciousness outside the brain? Can there be consciousness outside the brain? This is one of the biggest issues at the moment in the research of consciousness and the research of neuroscience, because we have this newer evidence which is barely accepted, barely known, because it would challenge a lot of pre-established notions that these quote-unquote scientists have about reality, about how things work. And all these pre-established notions are just that. They are notions. The actual evidence that there's consciousness within the brain, that when I speak about, I mean memories, I mean feelings, I mean your mental images, all of these things, they're supposed to be within the brain, but there's no hard science on this. Nobody has opened a brain and seen with their own eyes another person's mental images or another person's emotions. All they have is machines showing that the brain is activated upon certain feelings, upon certain functions. Certain parts of the brain are activated, and there are synapses. There's these connectors of electricity just coming forward. That's all we have. We don't have mental images. We don't have all the complexity that makes consciousness and that makes humans. Nobody has seen another person's perception. Nobody has felt another human or another being perception through their own eyes. All we know about the perceptions of other people or other entities is on how they react, in the case when we study animals, or what they tell us that they have seen. We really have no hard science on this, and we think we do, but we don't. And this is one of the largest issues in the research of consciousness. Before I move forward, I would like to remind you that if you want to join the growing discussion on consciousness and would like to be notified on the latest scientific discoveries and theories surrounding this topic and how they connect to ancient mythologies and philosophies, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, as I'll try to upload at least one video per week as I continue with the outline. Keeping this in mind is something very important when we study consciousness, because otherwise we would just believe in what they tell us and just go on with that and not do any more research and just believe whatever somebody tells us. Just like throughout the Middle Ages, people were told something about reality based on a book that everybody agreed upon and tried to understand. And that lasted for at least 500 years, if not much more than that. And it kept society in the Dark Ages. And I feel that somehow we are in some kind of dark ages where science has become the new god, the new religion, and whatever this abstract concept of science tells us, which is very nihilistic, it has become very dogmatic, we are to believe it. So no, we must move forward. We must look into actual science, into actual research, and never stop wondering and never stop being skeptic about everything. We must not accept anything that they keep telling us. We must look at the research and keep on the research. But in any case, the reason why it's important to look at the brain and look at the new research on this is because the theories on consciousness suggest that perhaps there is consciousness outside the brain, outside the body. This is what the whole studies on near-death experiences and entheogens and all these things are suggesting that when we die, we are still conscious, because consciousness is something that exists apart from us. Now, this is where the two theories and where the two postures collapse. One says that the brain is the consciousness in the body, and the other one says that perhaps that's not true. The reason why the brain, the areas in the brain are being activated is because the brain is some sort of a very complex and a very specialized piece of equipment and a specialized tool that serves to gather the world around us and transfer it into our actual experience. So it's more of a tool than the originator of consciousness. So what is the theory? The newer theories coming out is that consciousness is outside. It's actually everywhere. This is the core of the new quantum theories. So, of course, quantum physics revolutionized the whole... it took a quantum leap to say something from Newtonian physics into quantum physics. And studying this field of quantum physics is what has led scientists to wonder upon these larger things. What's truly going on when their equations and when their notions, quote-unquote notions, were challenged by their empirical evidence, by their experiments. They realized that there is some phenomena that they cannot explain, that they don't understand. Some of this is the observer. Why were their experiments different when they were observing them? Some other one is entanglement. Why does a particle react to another particle somewhere else in an instant, as if it was all part of one thing? So when we look into quantum physics, it tells us that everything is particles. Everything at the core is energy. It's not matter. Matter is made upon energy. And this energy, they don't know what it is. They're still trying to find out. So the new theory is that this energy is consciousness. And you can sort of tap into it because you are it. Everything is energy that solidifies into matter. But what leads the matter? What leads into one thing being one thing and another thing being a completely different thing? It's the origin. So this is the core idea. This study in quantum physics, which these things sound very crazy and very far-fetched to some people, but this is what the actual theories are suggesting. This is what the scientists are truly debating at the moment, and there's no consensus about it. So we have theories like the unified field of consciousness, where it says exactly that everything is energy and consciousness exists outside the body. So how can we determine this? We have different ways to determine this. The research is still ongoing. They are very into going forward with a lot of new experiments and new theories, and we have all sorts of debates going on at the moment. Consciousness is the main topic at the moment, trying to figure out how we work. And this is the question of questions. What are we as human beings? Another way that we can arrive to a truth or something closer to the truth is to look everywhere. So we have all the scientific theories, we have the evidence. What else do we have? Well, we have philosophy. We have ancient philosophies, ancient theories, ancient scriptures that speak about these things. But they speak about these things in some sort of code. Of course, quantum physics was not such an amazing thing to Easterners, to people from the East, from Asian traditions, as it was for Westerners. Because on the Eastern traditions, there's this idea of oneness, of unity, because it is in their scriptures, it is in their religions, that there's one force, and we are all part of this force. So this was not such an amazing discovery for them. This is a notion that they hold in their philosophies. This does not mean that their religion is the actual religion. This means that cultures and mythologies have had this information forever. It was shared to them, it was acknowledged by them, it was understood by them, and there are a lot of instances of like the Buddha, like Jesus, of quote-unquote enlightenment, where people suddenly understand it and they try to tell others how it is. And this happens today in the research on entheogens, for example. There's people who have experienced entheogens. I'm talking about DMT, psilocybin, different kinds of drugs, which it's also a very taboo concept. But yeah, they come from the quote-unquote trip, and they've seen things that just blew their mind. And what happens is that the next person does the same trip and they see the same thing. So we're speaking about something objective. Now, it's not only about drugs. It would be very silly to make an assumption upon drugs. It's about altered states of consciousness. We have people coming towards these conclusions through near-death experiences, through out-of-body experiences, which happen just naturally, which just happen. And they gain these understandings, these things that are slowly starting to come together. The reason why I wanted to go into this brain dilemma is because in this project that I've done, The Ghost of Jesus, where I start in this chapter where I start to speak about the spirit, which is something that I'm going to be speaking throughout the whole the rest of the book, is because it seems that this figure of Jesus was trying to explain what this quote-unquote spirit was, this holy quote-unquote ghost, which seems to be this consciousness which is outside of us and is in us. This is also equatable with the quote-unquote Father, because if we're all energy and there's this larger consciousness, which we may call God, quote-unquote God, then it's all part of the same thing. So it seems that Jesus was explaining this spirit, this ghost, as that energy, as that consciousness that all these other traditions, other religions were speaking about. Of course, this was such a hard concept to grasp back then, that the priests and everyone who looked at the scriptures and even the followers of Jesus probably looked at him and just thought that he was crazy. They didn't know what to make of it. But now that we know the other religions and we know the other philosophies, and now that we have this evidence on altered states of consciousness and so on, and even as I will speak finally in the next video. I wanted to do it in this video, but it went longer than I wanted to. But this is important because this is gonna set up the rest of the book. This is what it's all about. This is what the outline is about. It's about understanding this consciousness, which might be more might explain all these esoteric things into a more pragmatic way of thinking. And yes, indeed. So these new theories on how the brain works are suggesting that a lot of the pre-established notions are not correct, and they're just that, notions. So even the scientists, the holy science, quote unquote, is contradicting itself with the modern evidence. But what's interesting, and why I brought it up in the previous video, and I'm gonna speak about it in the next video, is that these new theories coming from, our new god science are not against these new theories of consciousness. As we'll see, this award winner in neuroscience, this psychologist who is proposing this new theory, is saying something that goes hand in hand with these new theories, and as she speaks about this paradox of emotion, which is a paradox, is something that scientists don't understand, and they are still debating, even though these, worshippers of quote-unquote science think that everything is closed and there's no open debates. There is an emotion paradox, and she thinks, this award winner scientist, she thinks that she's solved it. But it is very interesting that some of the things that she speaks of as quote-unquote mysterious can be easily explained if we take into account the concepts of unified field of consciousness and some of the more abstract, esoteric concepts of fields like parapsychology, which have to do with extrasensory perception. If you're on the path of finding the truth about reality and our purpose as humans on Earth, the information that I have to share concerns you. After a lifetime of research in philosophies ranging from Buddhism to the occult, I've encountered themes and patterns along some baffling information that is beginning to be seriously studied by science. A Rational Divine Outline, The Ghost of Jesus, is the first iteration of this project, where I analyze the message of Jesus without dogmatism, fanaticism, or religious bias. You can find my work available on Amazon on the link below. If you find this work valuable, consider subscribing, sharing, and following me on social media, as it'll help others in the same path to find this information. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.